Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Slappin Kpop podcast. And this is not at all an episode about K-pop, but I'm Sammy, and I'm here with Maria.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're doing well.
And I think this is the first time we've ever done something on loan by ourselves together.
Oh, yeah, it is, for sure. It's funny, though, because, we were, the first, people that of this crew that literally met each other in a Discord, which is funny.
Yeah, we started the Knee Slapper somehow, and,
essentially,
and now we're here. Mm-hmm. But this episode sort of came to be, and the bullshit reason we are allowed to talk about this is because I think now 5 or 6 K-pop idols have tested positive for COVID, something like that. And so now we're doing the COVID episode because me and Maria have had sort of our own unique experiences this year with COVID.
Oh yeah, it's been a time, but you'll find out very, very shortly. We're probably two of, I think Sammy said it best earlier, but we're two of probably the most qualified people to talk about this at this point in time, especially in this group of us. But yeah.
So if you want to give them a little bit of your background and why.
All right, so I guess put it shortly, for those of you who do not know, I guess the quick summary is that I graduated with a biotechnology degree. Won't say where because I don't want to dox myself, but from there I've worked since coming out of college, and even before with my co-ops, I've basically been working in the biopharmaceutical industry ever since coming out of that. Mainly with QC, a smidge in operations supply chain, but mainly with QC, especially coming right out of school. So I worked with, let's call it...
And QC is quality control for anyone that does not know what that means.
Brief summary of a quality control is in a company like a biopharmaceutical company, your big money makers are definitely the manufacturing department because they make the medicine, duh. And then you have supply chain or materials or the people who basically handle shipments coming in and out and bring products, or not just products really, more raw materials and components or consumables that are used within to make these medicines. And then probably you could argue the third most important teams. It really depends on the day. I argue it's more so quality control than quality assurance for reasons, but the overall quality team, but quality assurance, they focus more on documentation, writing SOPs, standard operating procedures, and other types of important documents for the company to describe work procedures, and also sign off on training, make sure people get appropriately trained, because for health authorities for this industry, it's very important. There's an indication that people are trained and you're doing things that you say are doing and you're not lying about anything. There's reasons
Please
for that.
Don't be lying about anything in your industry.
No,
Dear God.
People totally don't. But there's a reason why let's put it this way, there's a reason why they exist. And then my department is quality control. We're different from quality assurance. We still focus on a huge part of its quality, but we're different because we do physical testing. So essentially any samples that they take from the manufacturing process of whatever medicine they're creating, they usually distribute out samples for testing. Oftentimes that's the most common part of it. So, but there's a couple of components of it. There's a couple of exemptions. So the first main part, let's say you got, I'll just take my company, which I'll call Company A, just for the sake of this video, because not in the mood to dox myself, but Company A, since they have a big facility, they got multiple types of QC subgroups, I guess you could say, within a department. So they got chemistry, which does a lot of analytical kind of smaller micro sample testing, that sort of stuff. Usually they deal with frozen samples that get sent from manufacturing, testing lipids, and osmolality, a bunch of other tests. They got microbiome, which does a lot of immediate testing that has to have a quick turnaround. So for example, you'll often hear things like bioburden, endotoxin. Surprisingly, they test TOC, or total organic total organic compound testing. I think that's how you say it. I always forget. I'm used to the acronyms at this point, but yeah, they do that at my site, but they also do other things like growth promotion, stuff that like can be kept at like a more like lower temperature, not necessarily frozen, but like it's more like they need results from that sort of stuff right away. There's also bioassay, which they do like stuff with more like DNA kind of related stuff. I won't get into specifics for reasons, but sensitive information mainly, but stuff like that. And then you have other certain like subgroups sometimes in QC. For example, a big one's raw materials, which is what I did a lot at my previous job, but also a little bit here too. It's funny, both of my jobs I've currently had out of school have been essentially hybrid positions in some sort of way, but my prior job was definitely more so, it was like a combination of like raw materials inspection / broadly QC helper kind of stuff. And then my current job is more so like sample management / raw material stuff. It's weird. I've kind of lucked out with the hybrid roles in QC lately, but okay, I guess to get more to the point. So you have these other roles like sample management, which they help like handle shipments, handle distributing out samples to people, setting up things within LIMS, which is, there's many different types of LIMS systems, but these LIMS systems are like, they track samples and testing and results from testing and that sort of stuff. It's pretty common in the industry. Ironically, the places I've worked at use the same type of LIMS system, so that was beneficial in terms of learning and picking up things quickly. But that's very common. That's what a lot of health authorities will use to track like testing, to say, oh, this is the life journey of a sample, and this is how they track it digitally, you know? Because data integrity is a big deal with a lot of these companies. And then with raw materials, it's more so they test and approve of raw materials being specifically made to create these types of medicines to go into production. Because otherwise, you don't approve that, guess what? You're not making your batch on time. You're not going to meet production schedules. So there's also that pressure to try to like make sure things are tested and approved and signed off to be ready for use kind of deal, so that they could take them and use them in production. So there's a lot of like work behind the scenes that goes into that. So I mainly focus in that department. So a little bit, definitely more so testing in this role, but more so like, I guess you say operations in a way, a combination of like operations of handling like shipments and distributing out samples, and then just like some assay testing and mainly a lot of sampling for testing to happen. Essentially, that's what I mainly do now at my current job. And where I currently work, without disclosing too much information, is for a company currently working on a COVID vaccine. So Company A, they shall be known as in this video, and hopefully I'll remember that throughout this entire video. But Company A, I joined them, I guess at this point, a few months ago. So yeah, still kind of relatively new to that company, but I've been within the industry to kind of know how things operate in general. But yeah, things are kind of hectic, but I'll stop right there before I get more into it kind of deal. So Sammy, I guess if you want
The long and short of it is Maria just sort of prevents these medications from tests if they would kill you.
Yeah, essentially. We exist because of health authorities to make sure that
no one gets hurt.
We stop it before it gets sent out to people, essentially. Yeah. At least that's the intention. It doesn't always happen that way, unfortunately, but for the most part, it helps out a lot.
Yeah.
You know.
And then on my end, I'm a registered nurse. I've been working in a hospital for about 2 years now. And so my position is I'm a floor nurse. I do technically a float pool nurse, which just means that I can work on multiple different floors in a hospital. Usually you'll have your ICU. I don't work in the ICU, but that's your critical care. Step down units, which is sort of, a lot of it is based on how sick a patient is, and then they're just sent to the appropriate floor. I can work on so your ICU is for your sickest patients. Then sometimes some hospitals will have a step down unit, which is just patients that are not as sick as an ICU, so you'll take a step down. A telemetry unit is for any patient that needs any kind of cardiac monitoring, and I can work on telemetry units. And so that is just if you're having a heart attack, if you're having a stroke, if you're having anything that like we need to be able to see what your heart rhythm is at all times. So those are considered higher acuity. And then a regular med-surg unit or a medical surgical unit is just where you go when you're sick. If you're having surgery, if you're just are ill and you're not that acutely ill, then you'll just go there. And I can work on med-surg units, and I can work on telemetry units, and I also worked in a rehab facility that we have. And that's sort of what I'm doing in my day-to-day life before this happened.
Yeah, so you can see we and Sammy are kind of specially tied to this whole
pandemic.
Yeah, we have it's also part of the reason why you probably haven't seen me too often, because in the middle of dealing with stuff at my prior workplace and just trying to move and everything, and also just being busy in general. I was also basically staying with relatives for a good amount of the time, for like more than like a month. Like I think about 6-7 weeks I was with them. So because of that, not really appropriate, especially staying at other relatives' houses, to like probably record. It might be
a podcast.
Yeah, a podcast. It might just be kind of, rude or something like that. I don't, or at least I don't want them to interpret it like that. But having to explain that, I'm part of a podcast is kind of just like not really something I want to do at the moment, kind of deal.
Nope.
So they kind of don't.
That's probably why you've heard me more, because I need a distraction from everything that's happening.
Exactly.
It's actually why we started this podcast, because I was going through hell in my job, and
basically,
everyone else was quarantined. Thus, we started a podcast.
Yeah.
As a lot of people, I do think, did while quarantine was happening.
Yeah, just starting podcasts or just trying to find ways to entertain themselves?
Both. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
That's fair, yeah.
We decided that how we distract ourselves is making an internet podcast about K-pop.
I mean, actually, it's like, this is what the pandemic did. It led to us to create this gosh darn podcast that I show up once in a while.
I've had a lot of fun. I've been on almost every episode at this point.
I mean, I found my distraction in other things too. Like, oh god, I think in an earlier episode, that was the anime intros episode. That's where you found out I got into anime. I still am watching it, but I've been so busy with everything and moving that I just have not been able to. But I think I will, especially with the new job and working overtime. I've been working a good amount of overtime because of everything.
Understand why.
Yeah.
So, if we want to get into sort of, so that's what kind of we were doing before the pandemic. Then the pandemic hit in like March. Let's go with March, because time is a blur.
Stateside, I say March was like the big
and even then, I remember like my job, it started slowly, but the thing was, I don't like, in many ways, I remember when it first started, it's just that there were no tests, thus we were getting patients and who probably, now looking back, probably might have had COVID.
Oh, yeah.
But did not have the stereotypical signs, because anything can be COVID signs. Now, essentially, you test anybody that goes into a hospital for COVID. Anybody that's getting admitted has to be tested. Even if there's like almost zero chance that they have it and they're coming in for no symptoms of COVID, you're testing them just to be on the safe side. And there's people that I look back on where I'm like, that might have been COVID. Especially because it's March. You're still in the middle of... You're at the end of flu season, really, and you're still in, like, the cold, so there's still a lot of pneumonia. There's still a lot of all respiratory illnesses. And that is what COVID is. COVID's a respiratory illness. And I remember in the beginning, everything was just, like... It was... No one really knew what was happening. Everybody was very scared, but also, like, didn't really think it would be that bad. And then it started to hit slowly, because it started to be that you'd have... I remember when we had one patient in the whole hospital that had COVID. And it was terrifying. And then it became more and more and more. And at some point, I think almost every single bed in the hospital I worked at was a COVID bed. They weren't really admitting anybody else, because there was, like, those are issues. And when you shut down an OR in a hospital, which is a lot of money that comes from a hospital, comes from surgery, because surgery is very expensive to do.
Mainly elective surgeries? Is that my understanding?
A lot of it's elective. A lot of it is things that are, like, necessary, but don't necessarily need to be done this very moment.
Oh, okay, got you.
And essentially because we were required to, because of state mandates, you had to shut down the OR. So we weren't getting surgical patients at all. And really everything was focused at COVID. And really anybody that didn't have to go into a hospital wasn't coming. Like, I remember that there was a point where I hadn't had, like, we were thinking, like, is there no one having a stroke? Like, different things that you used to keep seeing often just weren't coming in because people were scared.
Oh, yeah.
Because they just didn't want to leave. Like, you go to a hospital, you know what that you're at risk for, and that's just the truth. You were. Because every bed was a COVID bed, and the worst part of it was just, like, in that first wave, it was something you hadn't seen before, and you weren't really sure what to do. Because no one knew what to do. Doctors were, every day I would go into work, like, I work 12-hour shifts, so I either work 3 or 4 days. I work 3 to 4 days a week, and then would just have days off, and I'd come back, and we'd be doing completely different things to the patients, because something a lot of people didn't realize with COVID was that it causes, you'd look at their lab work, and they'd have high D-dimers. So what a D-dimer is, it shows how it's blood coagulation, shows how much your blood is clotting. They'd have through-the-roof D-dimers, which you don't realize, that puts you on track for possibly having some kind of pulmonary embolism.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like that. Like,
yeah, that's terrifying.
No one was really noticing, like, in the beginning, no one thought to look at it. And you'd get, like, these 30-year-olds who are up and walking, and then they'd have a blood clot, and you're wondering why. Like, this is COVID, it's a respiratory illness. And then you see that, oh, wait, you do need to put them on a blood thinner because that's a risk. And that's, like, the weird things that you find with COVID. Like, I remember at one point in the beginning, they were intubating patients a lot. They'd come in, they'd still be breathing on their own, but they would proactively intubate somebody that needed a lot of oxygen which intubation is essentially just putting a tube down your throat and having a machine breathe both for you and also with you. Like, you're still breathing, you still have control a lot, but the machine is helping you breathe and giving you oxygen at the same time.
Is it like basically forcing your lungs to move and also forcing oxygen? It forces your lungs to move.
And at the beginning, they were thinking that that's good because it gives people's lungs rest. That's what they were thinking. What they found out is that that's not necessarily going to help unless you absolutely have to, because the problem wasn't that the problem was you can't get them off. You have to wean people off a ventilator. And they have to be able to breathe on their own for them to be taken off of it. The problem was when their body got used to being on the ventilator, it was hard to wean them off of it.
Oh.
And that was difficult. And I remember the phase of I distinctly remember this because I was off for like 3 days. Like, I had worked Friday, I had Saturday, Sunday, Monday off, and I came back on Tuesday. And that was when they figured out, I guess, that hydroxychloroquine might work. I remember that distinctly, and I went home having never given it, having never seen it, and having never needed it. Because it's a rheumatoid arthritis, because it's a drug that I just never needed to give. And I come in, and I have, I think, 8 patients that day, and I think 7 of them were on hydroxychloroquine. And I'm like,
jeez.
And then there were just, like, everybody was sort of adapting to whatever they thought would work. And none of it, I mean, we found out later hydroxychloroquine also doesn't really work. Now we're on remdesivir, which seems to be working. It seems to be better. Like, a lot of patients are on that now, and it seems to be doing them some good. But it's just, like, you'd see, and then there were just even little things, like, we'd give them a lot of fluids to say maybe that would work. And then we realized you're fluid overloading them. So we'd have to give them water pills to get all the fluid out because you're fluid overloading them.
So basically, so I guess the gist I'm coming out here is that you're basically like almost a researcher right now, trying to figure out what the hell is wrong. And you're trying to do it real time while trying to make sure you don't, like,
they don't
permanently
die.
Harm someone. Yeah. Which is stressful.
A lot of it is not, like, so much permanently harm. It's just, like, you were just looking, it could be permanently harm, but it's just, like, you're looking at the situation. I give a lot of credit to a lot of the doctors. Like, we had one pulmonologist. He was amazing because he essentially at one point almost had every single patient. Because it's a respiratory disease. You need a pulmonologist to be on. And he just was like, he found a method what essentially we ended up doing was in the morning we'd come in, we would see whatever patients, whatever oxygen they're on, and it's like you can be on a little bit of oxygen to a lot of oxygen, and he could see a patient that was, oh my god, he was amazing in that he could look at a patient at some point and just see he's going downhill now. We need to like immediately just figure that out and just get him off and like put him because the thing was our ICUs were so full, you had to be very particular about who got a bed there.
Oh.
Because in many ways ICUs got full, and while the patients that we were getting, I'm not going to say that they were too sick to be where they had to be. In a regular situation where we're not in an emergency situation like that, they would have been in an ICU. Just to have, because in ICU you have, I'm not even going to say that because in COVID they had far more than that, but they would have, on a normal day, I should have around 7 patients, a tele nurse should have a medical surgical nurse should have 7 patients, a telemetry nurse should have max of 6, and an ICU nurse should have max of, I think, 3. I was getting 9 to 10. Telemetry was getting 7 or 8. ICU nurses I know had like 4 or 5. They were just getting as many as they could, like, you can handle.
Oh, jeez.
Because you're just trying to, you can't, we were putting is, like, there were, like, the problem, we had our ER full of patients that needed to be admitted. But the problem wasn't that we weren't going to take them, is that we didn't have any beds to take them on. Like, there were no more rooms. They were just that full.
Like, you physically had no space.
We physically had no space unless we wanted to put them in the hallway. And you can't put a COVID patient in the hallway.
It's like, no, there's no way.
They need to be enclosed. The other thing was, and it's something I didn't notice until I didn't have that luxury, of COVID patients have to be in completely closed rooms. Usually in a hospital, you leave the door open.
Oh.
Especially if you have, like, a confused patient or, like, a really elderly person. Like, you leave the door open. Like, if you're passing by, you can look inside and see if this old lady with dementia who doesn't remember where she is trying to get up and is going to fall on the floor. Like, you can kind of keep the doors open and you can see them. Because there's no risk of, like, you getting... Like, she's here for a broken hip. There's no risk of you contracting something. With COVID, you had closed doors. So, that was the weird thing of just, like, you couldn't see your patients. You just had to go in. And going in meant putting on all of the PPE all over again. which takes a while to do.
Was it like 10 minutes each time, or?
No, it's not that long. You get into a habit of it, mainly because we just kept the masks on all day.
Oh,
the mask is what takes the longest amount of time. So it's the mask, gown, gloves, and a shield. A plastic shield in front of your face. So that doesn't take that long, but when you're trying to, like, do something quickly, it feels like a lot of time, at least.
Oh, yeah.
So that was fun. And by fun, I mean the most stressful experience of my life.
And hopefully probably will only be, but, you know.
I mean, the one thing with it is we are in the second wave. And I remember there was, like, this dip of, like, COVID happened. People got, like, it got terrible. Around the summer, it got better in that, like, we had only a few cases and people actually very good about, like, maintaining your social distancing and doing all of that. And we had lower cases. Now that the second wave is hitting, I will say the second wave, what I've been seeing is that the patients seem to be a little less sick. Like, I remember the first wave, I don't know if it's just better treatment or what's going on with it, or if the cases are just a little less severe. But the first wave, like, we were getting, I have never had so many patients. We use the word expire because we don't want to use the word die. But a lot of patients died. And in a way, I know logically there's nothing more I could have done to help them. Logically, you know that this is just, no one knew what was happening. Like, a lot of everything. But when your job is to try to help people and make people better, when that many people are dying, you wonder, like, did I miss something? Is there something I could have done? Is there something I could have done differently? Like, is there something I should have picked up on earlier? Things like that tend to creep into your mind of just like, did I do something? Or like, could I have done more? Logically, you know that like, no, there's nothing, like you did to the best of your ability and to the best of your knowledge, you did everything you could. But it's that little part of you that's always like, but could I have done more?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Especially in that kind of situation. When things are out of your control and you're supposed to like probably be taught to try to keep in control, it's probably extremely frustrating, frankly. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it was a situation where like no everyone was doing the best that they could with the knowledge you had at that time. It's just that the knowledge kept changing every day. Every day we were getting new this or new that. And I don't know, it was very stressful. Yeah. I was very stressed that during that time, and it was just the worst part was just seeing I think it's just the thing with COVID was just like it's a respiratory disease. And the thing you don't realize is that a lot of it results in like people struggling to breathe is one of the hardest things to watch someone have to do. 'Cause you're just like they like you don't really think about your own breathing, and I do realize I've now just made everyone aware of their own breathing.
You're making me aware of my own freaking breathing.
Sorry. I'm sorry. No, I've made myself aware of my own breathing. But, like, you just do it. And then you look at the patients where I'm, like, giving them, like, essentially blowing air into them. Like, there's something called high flow oxygen, which is, like, it's blowing air at, like 100% oxygen just straight into you as fast as it can to try to keep yourself breathing and your oxygen up. And it's hard. It's not a tube or anything. It's just like a lot of oxygen, and you're just like, and there's people that I still saw struggling to breathe on that. Ouch. And I'm like, that's like, it's something that surprisingly affected me where I was just like, wow. Like, you don't think about it until it's, like, right in front of you that, like, they can't breathe.
Man. That's just, yeah.
And now I think it's a little bit, that was all really the first wave. Like, the first wave was bad in a way that I hope never happens. The second wave has been a little bit, I'm not going to say easier because it's never easy, but it's been, I think, the patients seem less acute. We've sort of figured out good treatments, and we've sort of figured out, like, a lot of times I don't think a lot of people realized, like, when people could go home, when people were okay to go home, like, what is the appropriate oxygen level, and then so I think people are just now figuring out, like, what is okay for a COVID patient to be okay and to just be able to just ride because it's a virus. You're never gonna, like, there's nothing we can really give you that's gonna, like, if it's bacteria, we can give you an antibiotic. If it's something else, we can just give you medication. A virus is a completely different being. It's like, you just sort of have to treat it symptomatically. And then sort of have your body do the rest. The problem really is when your body isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So off of that, how did this affect your job?
Well, I guess it depends where you want to start. I guess I'll start with the first job I started with. So, should I just call it? I don't know. We'll call it company.
Old
company. So old company when this was happening, because at the time, the wave was coming to Europe really freaking hard. And Old Company was founded and is mostly based and has most of their facilities in an undisclosed location in Europe, which I won't say, because if I say it will definitely dox where I used to work at. So, no. So Old Company, because of that, they highly, like, restricted travel for work reasons. And I remember they used to have to display forms to be like, Because also where Old Company, or at least the site where I worked at Old Company, was in a state that wasn't, or at least at the time it wasn't hit hard. I'm not quite sure now how that's going. I think it's still kind of better.
Now it's sort of, from what I'm seeing, it seems like now, because first wave hit, like, East Coast and West Coast.
Well, mainly the cities.
Like the coastal
mainly
cities.
New York, mainly
It hit
LA,
the cities harder, and it hit, because I work in...
Seattle, too. Seattle was, I think, big, yeah.
Yeah, Seattle. It hit the coast a lot worse than it hit the interior, which is why, like, the wave we got hit very hard.
You guys did.
And now, even... Because... Again, a lot of the interior just wasn't getting cases. Now, the cases are far worse, but they are far more spread apart. I think a lot of the South is getting hit really hard, and a lot of the Midwest is getting hit very, very hard.
Oh, yeah, Florida was a hot mess for a while. Yeah.
Florida's a hot mess, but Florida is always Florida. Just saying. Sorry, not sorry to any listener in Florida. You know where you are.
Poor Florida.
But, yeah, that's why it's sort of like, the cases are bad now and we are getting a lot of COVID, but it's sort of more, it's not every patient I have is a COVID patient.
And also,
because it's sort of more
and also,
spread out.
it's also wintertime, so it's also prime time for just a lot of, like, illness. So, Old Company, when this was starting to roll out, I remember that they had forms, basically, before we came in, they had, like, the list of questions on the form, you know, like, did you travel from XYZ place? Because originally, a lot of the places were focused in, like, Asia and, of course, Italy and, like, I think it was there another country? Maybe. There might have been another one listed on there. But those are, like, the targets. It's like, were you there for the past X, Y, or so days? And some other questions, no. They have a hand, you know, temperature scanner thing. Scan your forehead to make sure you weren't sick or anything, and then you just kind of walk in. I think they gave they might have had some disposable. I don't know if they really had as much disposable masks, but they did actually give us in the beginning masks that we could wash for ourselves. So a good chunk of my masks I didn't have to buy, like the reusable ones. They're all from like the majority of them are from like my prior company. So I will say thank you, prior company, for that. But still, since it's a specific European country, insert quote European country here. Jesus Christ. Because at the time they were more, the cases weren't as crazy in that specific country. I think they were, and I also think it was because of the state too.
It was not a country that was hit terribly.
So Old Company, you know, because of the more kind of lax rules at the time, I think, and because the state I was living in wasn't hit as hard, and it was more rural-ish where I worked at. It was a little bit more lax. Like, you could technically not have to wear a mask in the workplace in those earlier days. Granted, I don't know if that was, like, changed since I left, though, especially with the winter coming in. I'm not quite sure. And, I'll put it this way. People didn't get tested for COVID there. At least, again, can't really say after I left, but before then they were not. It was really just like, they were like, you have to get your temperature checked before you come in. If you have any signs of the sickness, we encourage you not to come in at all. That kind of deal. But yeah, you had to go find like your manager or a designated person to scan your forehead and like do that. There wasn't like a main central location to do so. So Old Company still, they were a little bit more lax. I think they started kind of switching up though when certain people in the workplace were starting to get sick with COVID. There was only, before I left, there was only like, I think 1 or 2 cases potentially that happened because, again, more rural area, but still they definitely like sequestered people, had certain people work from home. And for a long time, they actually did have, again, I don't know what they're doing now with the winter and everything, but for a good while, a lot of people who did a lot of computer-based work had to stay at home. Like, they had select people based on depending on what job you had. Certain ones had to absolutely stay at work. I was one of those people because I helped with like collection of samples, so I was screwed in that way because of that. But I had a couple coworkers I closely worked with that did a lot of computer-based work still at home, so they were stuck at home. But it's like, you also see real time too. I guess you could say at this point, now and at my current job, I'll get off in a tiny bit of a tangent, but it ties in. I kind of appreciate the fact that I'm A, out of school right now, and B, not like married with kids, especially if the kids are like below 13 years old, because it is so hard for a lot of these, especially mainly the working moms, probably the dads too, but really it's most of the working moms, for them to not only make sure the kids are attending school, especially if they're stuck at home, but also and also making sure someone watches their kids, because not everyone, you're not calling up a babysitter or a nanny really at the moment, unless you can get family or a trusted like clean friend or neighbor to watch after your kids. But also having kids as young as like 7 to like 11 or even younger try to do learning on a computer. Like, it's not easy. And like, I had some coworkers struggle with it, mainly, but not really. It's just hard because they're like, they want their kids to have that interaction too, and because it's important. It's important for kids to like be able to like have that social interaction, but at the same time, you don't want to get sick, and it's also like
and even if again, COVID does hit children far differently than it does adults, but one, you don't want your child to be a carrier and give it to you, and who will get hit harder, and two, no one knows the long-term side effects of a kid with COVID. No one knows the long-term side effects of a person with COVID, period.
Yeah, it's only been like about not even a year at this point. Yeah.
No, it hasn't been a year. I mean, the other thing with it was, I want to just go off on a little, I'll continue this little tangent for a little bit of just, I remember just, I have not seen members of my family in like a year. Just because I know I've been exposed because of where I work. Like, I work with COVID patients, even with all of the getup that you put on. Like, at some point you have to sort of like see your family. If you have no symptoms, I wear a mask at all times, all of that. But there was a point where you're just like not seeing family. I know people who like, I know one of the doctors I had would just avoided seeing his very young child. Like, this was before we knew how COVID affected children. It just did not even like go home to their kids. They would just stay in like, my hospital offered accommodation where they'd pay for you to go to a hotel if you didn't want to go home. And like, there's people that just didn't see their kids for like months. But like, I'm not married. Not in school. I don't have kids. But it's just that situation of like, you're just avoiding your family. Oh, yeah. So the people you want to comfort you after a terrible day at work, you can't go to them.
Oh, yeah. It sucks. Like, yeah. Like even like, oh God. I'll go on, before I go back to talking about company and the new company, without revealing too much of the information because of family privacy and whatnot, I had a couple relatives who had, well, now it's an ex, but there's a reason why. I had
that's an update that I didn't know. It's an ex.
They had an ex. They were they hadn't seen them in a long time at that time. I'm trying to like keep this as vague as possible out of the instance that they could potentially see this, although I doubt it, but still, just in case. They had an ex they wanted to see, so they went down to a certain southern state to visit and meet this ex's family for some reason. And then ended up flying back on the airplane, and then when they got back, the ex tested positive. And so, but they got back and stayed at a house where another relative was there as well. So guess what? All of them had to quarantine together. On top of that, I also had another.
Third relative has I think that third relative has the right to be the most pissed.
Oh yeah, that relative was angry. That's for sure. I mean, granted, the other relatives of the relative in particular with the ex were definitely not thrilled because they were like, "This is." Yeah, they were just like, "What the heck are you thinking?" Like, oh my goodness. Even like, I even swear, like when things were hitting the fan back in March, I have a sibling. Well, I have a couple siblings, but I had one sibling who wanted to have their senior year, vacation thing. And it's like right in the middle when things are getting bad. And my mom's just like, if you do get your ass on the motherfucking airplane right now, March. So God help me, you will be dead. Yeah, you will be screwed. You'll be stuck down there. And my
You're
sibling
not
was
coming
just like,
back.
"But I want to have my spring break," and I'm like calling her on the phone. I'm like, your head's on the motherfucking chopping block. Yet you're more concerned about your goddamn whiskers right now. Get your freaking ass on the airplane back home.
You're gonna
Like,
die.
do it now. I mean, bad enough that they're flying on an airplane and everything. I did not see my sibling for at least 2 weeks because of that. Because I'm just like, no, I'm sorry, I'm staying safe. That person could go off in her corner and do whatever. And then, oh god, my other sibling went to college and came in contact with someone else. Yep. With someone else who apparently had COVID. So the poor kid was stuck in a hotel room for 10 days. At least they brought him room service and food because, oh my god, I would have been so bored.
Oof.
But yeah, the kid still had to do work and whatnot. And then another relative who is still a minor, but, you know, like high school age, kid in the kid's dorm got COVID. So they had to quarantine the kid at another relative's house, and oh my god, it was just a hot freaking mess.
Just
my
quarantining
family,
people around.
I know, literally, it's like a circle of quarantine in my immediate family. It's ridiculous, but that's been a whole tangent. So we had to deal with that, and then TLDR, I guess, little disclosure, I'm kind of low key quarantining because literally yesterday, before we record this podcast, because this will probably hopefully be old news. Who knows if I have it or not? I'll find out this weekend, I guess.
I'll put it somewhere. I'll record something later if you got it.
Disclaimer: turns out she tested blank. Right, like that.
Great.
Geez,
I'll just say positive or negative.
Positive or negative, and then. Basically, yeah. Which kind of sucks because it's right around Christmas time either way. So it's just kind of like, Jesus Christ. Doesn't matter either way.
Maria, let's redo this. Turns out she tested negative.
Anyways, so yeah, I'm currently quarantining right now, which, yay. Yay. So I do, it's funny because a huge snowstorm just literally came in and I have not been outside to brush my car because I'm trying to do the right thing. Hashtag do the right thing.
You're just gonna brush your car off in the middle of the night, like you're gonna look like you're robbing your own car because you're just like, I just don't want to be around people.
Yeah, but the problem is I'm in an apartment complex too, so that's really why
you're always gonna be around people.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like really trying to like avoid people at least for the next few days, for the most part. So, yeah, so it's fun. I had a nice, entertaining time. At least I have a fireplace in my apartment. It's nice and warm.
Yay.
Gas fireplace. But anyways, back to the main topic.
Back to the main topic of old company.
Old company. Let's finally get through this. So yeah, a lot of what I discussed earlier about old company is true. When things got worse, they decided to spread people out because a lot of the QC department there was kind of like sequestered into a very tiny space of like 25 people. But they also had certain QC people to still all work on their computers, so those guys were kept home pretty much all the time for God knows how long. They probably rotate supervisors and managers coming in, you know, just to make sure things are A-okay and working great. It was funny too because right around that time, an old manager and an old supervisor both left around that March time frame. It wasn't because of COVID, but because of other things. But it was just like, wow, what kind of piss poor timing to lose leadership.
Oh, please. My hospital lost half of its managers.
Oh, jeez.
Because I think people just got very overwhelmed and a lot of people just left.
Wait, you guys got overwhelmed? I had no idea.
I know, right?
Right? Wait, something about trying to save people from dying is overwhelming? Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. I mean, it's like, well, yeah. Anyways, I'll continue. I'm bad with jokes. I'm sorry. Anyways, yeah, that was great timing to lose manager. So we really only had my supervisor, and then, but also they moved the head of like the R&D department there to like essentially be our ultimate manager. So like there'd be like, or I guess director in this case, because technically they also have a QC manager now there, but that person was also part of the R&D department. So yeah, a lot of switching around happened with my department. I think probably because of COVID combination, but also as a combination of reorganizing for like future stuff that was going to be occurring, which I'm not quite sure how that's going right now, but just what they were planning at the time. So anyways, while that was going on, Let's see. I think a lot of people, I mean, there was a lot of real. I will say that's the one thing I do kind of miss about working at old company was that I definitely felt like I knew a lot more people there. Probably because that site was also smaller too. In current company, the site is much larger, and because I think it's also because we've been so freaking busy with everything, I haven't really gotten that time to like personally talk to people or really get to know people like even within my own department. But like even at old company, I definitely got to know like people not just within my own department, but from other departments as well. You know, I think that's probably the one thing I kind of miss about working at a larger site, but I mean, it is what it is. And also, of course, the circumstances are kind of, high, big, and important. But anyways, old company. Yeah, and, there's a lot of real discussions about kind of just like, what's going to happen? Would you actually, take this vaccine? For me, I mean, I'm going to say, yeah. And current company's vaccine, yeah, I'll end up taking it. I don't know when, because it all depends when it, I guess, becomes available for us, but I definitely will, mainly because having studied biology and everything, the benefits of getting vaccinated outweigh a lot of the risks by like a lot, overall in general.
True. I mean,
yeah, I mean, just even with the vaccines they have you take as you like grow up, at least in the States, there's reasons why. Like, there's a reason why they tell you to get your tetanus shot every 10 years because.
Oh yeah.
You ever seen people with tetanus? It's terrifying.
It sucks.
I haven't seen it in real life, but I've seen photos, and it's just kind of like, oh god,
terrible.
Oh
tetanus
god,
is terrible.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much you can talk about what's the science behind the COVID vaccines of just. These are actual tested science. These are not like a lot of people are scared of the time frame of a vaccine. I don't think a lot of it realize that the problem with a lot of vaccines and why they take so long is approval. Approval to get a lot of this testing or research even done takes
like 10 years, a decade.
It takes years to just get the test. When the approval has already been given, it's not that they're not testing as much, is that the testing is just you're able to just do things in a timely manner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like
if it takes 10 years for a vaccine to be made, it really might be only 1 year of actual testing.
Oh, yeah.
And 10 years of approvals.
Yeah. The thing that, like... So, I guess not just with vaccines, but also with medicine in general, is that you need to prove that it won't harm people. And I guess I could speak from experience with old company. There was not a vaccine line, but there was like a drug line that they were doing clinical trials for that they had to shut down in the first phase because it found, I think in the specific case, it was that people were developing like antibodies against the medicine that it happened later on in phase 1. So that was kind of unusual because usually that stuff happens earlier on, but for some reason it happened later on in phase 1. But because of that, they immediately had to shut that down. And when you shut programs like that down, you're kissing money away goodbye.
Millions and millions of money of dollars.
A lot of people really don't realize another tangent, but it's important. But a lot of people really don't realize how much fucking money goes into making medicine because you have
or how much fucking money goes into hospital or working.
Oh yeah,
how much money the entire healthcare industry, from medication to production to everything.
There's so much money.
So much. It is millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah. And
hospitals lost millions of dollars during COVID because they just shut down departments upon departments. But you can't, you need the staff to do something else.
Yeah.
Like, it's so much money that goes into all of it.
And really, and like, I guess coming from the biotech kind of perspective, combination of old company and new company thought here, or company A thought, whatever I want to call it. A lot of it is because a lot of the money comes from research, number one, because you need to buy things to make that research go and to make sure things work and everything. And they say out of every 10,000 like medicine type ideas, only about one will ever make it to market. So you're throwing a lot of money to try to make something to work, and the chances of it not working are a hell of a lot higher. But you need to do that in order to find out what works and what is safe, And it's the frustrating thing. If people could limit that 10,000 to like 5,000 or even much lower, that'd be great. I'd love to know how that works too, but that's not the case. It's hard. Especially since with biology, we still don't know everything. There's a lot that like people don't know about how biology works. It's still like a big giant. It's like like the deep depths of the ocean. There's still a lot we don't freaking know about it. Yeah, that we're still learning about.
You think that even with everything else, we understand how things like there's things that I'm doing that we're just like we don't know why it happens.
Yeah,
why your body does things or why your body reacts to things, but it does.
Yeah, and then I guess continuing on with money and everything company. A lot of the reasons why I guess you could say, these medicines tend to be, cost money is also because, not just because of the research and the amount of time it takes to make sure, that it's all good and safe and effective. And there's, of course, laws that, require that to be the case. Because obviously you don't want someone to die from taking, like, a medication or something. But,
And also, I don't think a lot of people realize that if someone dies after taking a medication, like, no one is trying to poison you intentionally, because it is, even not just on the humanity side of it, because, one, Maria's here. Maria's a human being. Anybody working on any kind of medication is a human being. Anybody giving you any kind of medication, like a nurse, hi, is a human being. We're not trying to harm you. We're not super villains.
No, we're not.
We're not.
If anything, I would say the beef might come from more higher ups at certain companies, you could say, but I mean, the normal everyday people who are doing the main menial grind work,
who are actually doing the work and putting the chemicals together and doing all of that, are not trying to hurt you. Just want to put that out there that human beings, because I think a lot of times, especially with like a vaccine like this, it seems like it's a monolith corporation behind it. Whereas in reality, human beings did have to do this.
Human beings,
like, for there to be a conspiracy that this is a poison of some kind, you know how many people work at your new company. Yeah. That's thousands of people that would have to know about it.
Thousands.
Realistically, that's thousands upon thousands of people that know and are just saying nothing. Just like,
nothing's happening. And it's also frustrating, too, because you do find a hell of a lot of misinformation online. Granted, this is also why I don't, like, spend a lot of time on, like, social media and shit.
Don't go on Twitter.
It's funny, because whenever something happens, everyone all of a sudden becomes a big fucking expert. Granted, I don't even consider myself an expert, to be honest with you. Again, I'm
an expert in nothing.
I'm like, I have enough knowledge than, like, your basic average person having, because I work in this industry, but I'm not a fucking expert.
I think that the minute you consider yourself an expert, because I know experts that don't consider themselves experts, because in a way you can never be an expert in anything. Especially in anything involving biology, it's always going to change.
It's always going to change.
Day in and day. Like, it always changes. But, I don't know. I just find that a lot of the conspiracy theories aggravate me. And it really aggravated me a lot of times with the conspiracy theories of COVID isn't real. I would get home from a day of just, like, again, 8, 9, 10
that's the one that I just don't get. I can get...
And, like, I'm like... I can understand you thinking that this is overblown, that there are, but to say that it's not happening, to say that essentially the fact that I have people are dying and it's not happening, are these fake people? Like, what is the...
They're just stand-ins. It's just a cardboard cutout. It's
like what? Am I doing CPR on, like... Nothing? Like, what am I... Like, what's happening?
It's like, well, they think you're doing
They're real human beings.
Yeah. Like,
They're someone's family. Maybe not your family, maybe not someone you'll ever meet, but they're someone's family.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the thing with vaccines are just... A lot of people we don't know the side effects of, well, we also don't know what the long-term effects of having COVID are, and we know the short-term effect of
There's a lot of unknown right now with everything going on. It's a big, giant fucking question mark. Like, that's the truth. A lot of people even making the vaccines all based from, working at new company, based from all the clinical trials, or, the clinical trials we've been trying to push through and conduct, a lot of stuff seems to be great right now. Which is good. You want it to be that way. But, it's kind of hard because you're doing this in such a short amount of time that you don't always know, the longer term effects. And it's also like, it's one thing when it's a controlled group of people. It's another thing when you're putting it out there in the real world because, guess what?
I mean, also, medication trials can only be done by such specific people.
Exactly. I want to make a point, though, when it comes to, this is more of a broad thing, kind of tied to company A and B, or A and old company, or I don't know how I'm saying it, but new company, old company. And just old companies in general within biotech, they are held to very high, strict regulations when it comes from health authorities. Because,
of course,
because you are not allowed, if you're not approved from a company to distribute stuff into another market, you cannot sell your crap there, nor can you produce things there. Like, within the States, even if you're selling the medicine to another country, not even in the US, you have to be approved to produce that in the States in the way that you say you're going to produce that. So it has to be to the T. They have to come in and make sure everything is clean, and that they trust you, and that, you know, that you're okay to, you know, they're confident in your abilities to produce it. And the FDA, in my experience, I won't say again where, most of it has been with old company, and I imagine I can't really say too much about new company, but I know things will be happening in that department because of everything tied to COVID. But with old company, I've had the FDA come twice. We've had Japan, we've had Turkey, we've had Brazil, we've had Canada, and I think those are like some of the bigger ones. I thought Japan was going to be pretty strict, but like mainly the FDA is ruthless. I will tell you that right now. The FDA is insanely ruthless. Like, compared to a lot of other facilities, like the other health authorities, they'll be strict, especially like when it comes to Japan and European Union too as well. Those, because the European Pharmacopedia, the Japan Pharmacopedia, and then the USP Pharmacopedia. Those are like those guidelines, and then the ICH guidelines. They're all acronyms. I know. I forget the full names for them sometimes, but essentially those are like the governing ones of like how you conduct testing, how you like are supposed to test these methods properly, how they approve of them, how what your SOPs and documentation that you create from your company have to follow, that sort of stuff. And like that's what a lot of those guidelines that these like health inspectors will focus on, you know, to like make sure that you're doing your testing and you're producing your products well and you're running your facilities properly. The FDA is probably the most ruthless in my experience that I have seen it, because my God, they were stressful. Like, oh my God, like so they like the ones that I've experienced were pre-licensing inspections, or PLIs, we've called them. At an old company, they will both happen at old company so far. New company, I'm pretty sure one's going to be coming up probably within the first quarter of next year. Can't really say when. I have a vibe it's going to happen, but because it makes sense with COVID and everything. But with old company, they came to a combination of trying to sell a product that was already being transferred production into the States, and then they came to license for a new product. For the new product, they actually came in February this year, which is crazy, the timing of it all. It's like you could not have timed that perfectly to do a PLI inspection given everything that was going on. But anyways, so basically the big thing is it's a whole preparation, because they'll typically notify you within a month that they're coming. It will be oftentimes less than a month. So you have to basically prep and make sure if there's anything that noteworthy that needs to get fixed or taken care of, you take care of that. What I've experienced, they've stuck around for like about a week. The first time they were there, they really, especially from the QC perspective, actually both times really, they really, really, really grilled on data integrity. Like, particularly so much. Like, how did we, track our paper? How do we keep track of our raw data? Like, how is testing conducted? How is it documented? Is there ways to ensure that information is not being edited easily from this stuff? And this was on stuff that wasn't even like, I don't think made an amendment yet by the FDA in their guidelines, which is crazy. It was more so like looking forward stuff, and they like held us to like such a high standard. It was to the point that even one of the inspectors went through our trash. Like, I'm not even kidding you. They went through our to-be shredded bin and trash bin to see if any raw data was thrown away at all. Like, that's how insane they will go to those lengths. And I think that was on, like, literally the second to last day or the last day. It was insane. I think my poor old manager at that job, I think, almost had, like, a stroke then and there. Because it was just, like, It's gnarly. Like, oh my God. And everyone's, on high edge. Because if you sometimes even try to talk to them, if you over explain things or if you talk too much, that might pry them into asking questions about certain things that
you don't want them asking questions about. Yeah.
Not because you're doing something wrong, or at least that's the hope.
But just because it
just opens up the doors more, and then they'll go dig into more things that you might.
It just makes the process longer.
It makes the process longer. It's that sort of stuff. So, like, it's a lot. It is a lot. Like, oh man, even just the prep for them. Like, I've even had coworkers get Swiffer dusters just to make sure, like, the freaking light fixtures are cleaned.
No, the same thing happens with hospitals. The hospitals get every year the state, and really a lot of it is just for you to be able to get, hospitals have to get inspections that similar same way to be able to get Medicare. If you no longer are accepting Medicare, essentially your hospital's dead.
Ooh.
Because most of your money goes through Medicare and you have to be approved by them and meet their standards. Because if Medicare or Medicaid or all of the government does not approve of you, then that's just a warning to every other insurance company to not work with that.
Oh, yeah.
And thus, the hospital shuts down.
Damn.
And then, from the same thing happens, they go through everything. And it was the middle of COVID when they did it this year.
Oh, jeez.
So, we're doing things as well as we can.
Yeah.
But it's just, like, everything is different than it was. So we don't know what the rules are because the rules change every day.
The rules have it almost sounds like the rules book has been thrown out the window. It's just kind of like, we're just going to work with it and make adjustments as we go along.
We're going to do what we have to do to make sure, like, because again, what we were focusing on was, and a lot of times there's always the added little things of, like, we have to make sure our documentation is correct.
Oh, yeah.
But also the most important thing isn't the documentation. It is this person alive and well? That is my focus. Everything else I can handle later. Because our documentation is more on our end for us to show that we're doing our job correctly. I have so much documentation to do on my day-to-day for every patient that is that part of it. And they go through that. They go through the hospital. They came virtually this year, which was better. They weren't actually there because they also, again, not gonna expose themselves like that. And I'm like, great.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of thing where they'll just go digging through everything. And hospitals have so much trash that needs to be put into different bins that it's like, oh shit, make sure you don't put the sharps in the other bin. Make sure you don't put like, there's very specific trash that we gotta put in specific ways. It's very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
It was very bad this year. But we did what we had to do. And it all went well.
Oh, yeah. And, like...
But yeah. I don't think people realize the amount of oversight there is on any kind of medical community.
Yeah.
Like, there is so much oversight.
A lot.
Like, we couldn't do anything wrong if we wanted to. Not that we do, but even if we wanted to. That's not, like, no, there's so many people that has to go through. There's so much oversight and rules and regulations and laws and all of that.
It's funny you mentioned that.
It's not possible.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because, like, it also ties into how, like, these companies tend to operate. So, like, again, talking about, like, new and old company in a way, deviations. If something goes wrong with testing, if something goes wrong with, like, the way the results of data or something, we have to really, like, pull deviations or do OOSs, which means we have to go through and be like, why did this fail? You know, like, how was it because of how the analyst did it? Was it because of the sample itself? Was it because of, was the method done incorrectly? You know, you go through the checklist to make sure. And, and if you need to, you do more testing to see and, like, research to see, okay, what's going on here? Is there something wrong with our method? Is there something wrong with the batch that's being produced? You know, why did this fail? You need to go through. It's a whole process, to document that. Because, these inspectors, when they do come and visit, will ask, okay, what about a deviation? And have you had XYZ deviation in XYZ? How did you take care of this situation? You know, they'll see, because they know that nothing's perfect. They know
something will always go wrong.
Something always goes wrong.
They don't necessarily want everything to be, and this is the same thing that happens with us in a different ways. It's like they don't want everything to be perfect because they know that's not possible.
Oh, yeah.
They just want to make sure that when things go wrong, you have a correct method of figuring out what happened and how it fixed
On top of that,
that is the bigger thing. That's the bigger thing than always expecting things to be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
Because nothing will ever be perfect, and I think everyone realizes that.
Yeah, like one time.
It's not making mistakes. It's figuring out how to make them fixable.
Yeah, like it even, like it's funny, I got a couple things to mention too in regards to that. One is like with a whole this ties into, I guess I'll describe it a little bit. So there's a lot of money that goes into making drugs. One of it is that the items you're using to make the products themselves, some will tend to be cheaper, like say salt or sugar, because they won't say salt or sugar, they'll be like sucrose and, you know, what is it, sodium chloride, Jesus Christ, nitrogen. Salt, but they won't say like that. They'll say it by the chemical name, obviously. And it's like chemical grade to make medicine, that sort of stuff. But then you'll have other things like, how do you say, like, for example, without giving too much away, custom enzymes. Custom enzymes that each little jar of how many you use is at least 6 figures. Like, say, close to 500,000 6 figures. So how many you use in a batch or how many batches you make, you're literally dumping in millions upon millions of a very expensive item into a batch. So when that batch gets contaminated, like what happened at one of the batches at my old company, they literally had to throw upon millions of worth of a batch down the drain because they knew that thing was contaminated and they could not give it to people. It's just not going to happen. And it sucks. It sucks, especially when you put all that time and effort into buying consumables to be used in the batch, to buy all the items you need, but you have to. It's just not right to push something through. These are people's lives. Yeah, you have to. And it sucks that so much money gets pushed down the drain because of that, but that's how it is, unfortunately, you know?
It's a situation where you're dealing with human lives, you're dealing with people, and you're sort of held to that. You're held to the highest possible standard because if you fuck up, it is the biggest possible loss of it could seriously and permanently harm somebody.
And on top of that site, or maybe the company, depending how big the company is, that site or company gets shut the fuck down.
Or you get sued to oblivion. Hell and back.
Or sued to oblivion.
For millions upon millions of dollars.
Yes.
That you just... And then, again, I lose my license. I lose the one thing... Because you can't take away a degree. You can't take away a license.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
But, it's just... No one is gonna intentionally try to harm anybody.
Yeah.
That's just not worth it.
Yeah.
For what?
For what? No one's gonna... At least most, sane people that aren't so crazy as...
But the amount of people that would take to do a large-scale harming of a large group of people through the use of medical purposes is so difficult, because that's thousands of people that have to just be on board.
Yeah.
And, cool with it. And just cool with, hurting people.
All right, I think I've talked enough about old company. I might as well start talking about new company or company A that I'm working for, without obviously getting too into details.
I think we talked a lot about company A too.
Kind of, but vaguely.
We can just get into more specifics.
So
about
more specific stuffs. I literally just kind of applied on a whim because it was a company I've been wanting to join for a while, actually, to be honest with you. And I just kind of looked out that there was a position that I'm like, I could do this shit. I could do this shit, pick up on it, and I guess I was able to sell to them and I got the job, because I really just, at that time, wanted to leave. It's not because my prior workplace sucked. I actually did quite enjoy it, but it was more so the location and just wanting to, change up my life around a little bit. It wasn't because of, bad things at that prior workplace. I still miss those people.
Look, all the knee slappers switched jobs. Most of the knee slappers switched jobs this year.
Yeah, most did. We're just oh, fuck. This kind of realigned our priorities a little bit. We're just
So we just all went through some life changes.
Yeah. Why not? I guess why not? Of all years to do
Why
so.
not?
But anyways, so new company. I guess how it's been, how it goes. So usually when you start a new company in the biotech industry, you are slammed with documents you have to read, and you have to read them in order to do basically practically anything there, in order, and not only just documents, but also like on the job training and stuff like that, depending on what it is you're doing. But you have to like read a bunch of SOPs and other important documents that obviously can't be disclosed to the public for reasons, usually legality reasons, but you have to like, you have to basically read about, things to gain you access to areas, to, to know how to properly wear, PPE, protective, I forget the full term for it, but essentially like gloves, goggles, lab coats, any other type of gowning, depending on what exactly you're doing and where you're doing that sort of task. Usually it's stricter within the manufacturing suites, and that's of course the case here, and as well in certain sampling or testing areas we have to gown up pretty heavily as well, depending on what we're doing. It also depends on how you use certain systems and how you get trained to use certain systems, like for example LIMS and whatnot, which I had to do here as well at my new company. A lot of, and as for like currently what new company is doing, a lot of it's targeted towards COVID, and things are just crazy because we're basically rushing right now to get as many batches made as we possibly can. Because I'm trying to be careful not to say specific details, but until we get because obviously at some point we're going to be able to give this out to people. So in the meantime we're all rushing trying to get things prepared so that we have a good enough of a starting supply to push out for people, but also getting a good supply being worked on at the moment so that we could just keep churning stuff out. I mean, it's crazy. It's to the point of where everything is needed like now, which sounds weird to say, but like literally everything. So the point of like it's affected even my prior workplace, that they got calls from other companies where they buy certain consumables from. They're like, by the way, we can't sell you this stuff to you right now because it has to all go straight to COVID production. So they are getting affected and screwed up making their own medicine because of all this. Like everything you could think of is going.
Everything is short. Look, I'm gonna say from my perspective, we were short on gloves. We had everything is just so, because there was no infrastructure to produce as much as it is. So like, you're just you're doing the best with what you got, and you're just getting more from some.
No, that's what they're doing too.
The production needs to up.
Yeah, that's what they're doing
from everywhere.
Yeah, that's what they're doing with my company. Like, I have had to work crazy hours. Like, I mean, I sign up for like 4 10-hour days for my work job because they need coverage on the weekends for like sample management.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
I can't. Yeah, we tend to stay later, and the problem is you can't work more than like 16 hours.
For you guys,
because that's like a legal like sometimes you're there for a very long time, but they can't ask you to work for like longer, because 16 hours, you're already thinking of someone working 16 hours straight in a patient care job is excessive.
Oh yeah, like
more than 60.
Yeah, I've been doing overtime a lot lately too because of just meeting up with the demands for the COVID vaccine. Like, it's been a combination of just receiving shipments and processing those shipments so that they can get tested in QC. It's been a combination of getting like scanning. In this case, it's been like ramen scanning done for certain materials so that those can be pushed into production so they can use those in production. It's been a combination of making sure to inspect like certain types of consumables because they need them at certain stages in production, and they're producing so frequently now that they just need us constantly to be inspecting and approving of certain materials, mainly because some of these like important like types of materials have multiple components to them, and we need to make sure all those components are together. Like, it's crazy. I did that just the other day. Actually yesterday. At the time of this recording yesterday, but yesterday I spent the whole day straight when I got into the door literally working with another department, which in this case was supply chain, to coordinate the inspection of these kits and to go through and to make sure they had each and every single part of these like what was it, like 12, 13 components to them, just to make sure they had them all together, because they were trying, because they're going through at least about 60 of these parts per month, and they get a batch of about 45 each, so they need to make sure they have enough for the month, like, and they're going through this so much constantly right now, so that's been always like a struggle.
I just think that a lot of this has just sort of been, it's not that we're doing anything different than what we're usually doing, it's just that, like, the schedule and the volume is insanely bigger than usual.
Yes, it is so true.
It's not like we're doing anything that we don't usually do.
It's just
the volume and scale of it, and also the time crunch.
That's what really kills me, is the time crunch, because, like, it's like they're often saying, like, we, from higher ups, it's like, we need results for XYZ thing now, especially now since, without getting into too much detail, they're trying to ask for, like, approvals to be to essentially release and produce this drug and distribute this drug out to people. They're trying to do a lot of testing results and trying to get a lot of stuff through so that they have batches all set and ready to go to give out to people, and B, that these batches have been approved by the testing, either that were made, because another big thing that happened with my company that I'm working at right now, is that they're collaborating with other companies as well to try to produce this thing, because not one company, and even with, and not just like, okay, so there's, like, you probably heard in the news, there's kind of like different groups of, like, different types of vaccines being made right now, and the company I work for is obviously one of those types, but within that group, they're working with other companies as well to try to make this drug and try to produce this drug. Because not one company of these type of vaccines, not one company can make enough of this type of vaccine for the whole entire world to use. Like, that's the thing. Like, that's a big thing, too. It's like, I have gone from just trying to get a new job to, like, having the weight of the fucking world on my shoulders because of, like, literally because of just to meet production schedules, just to, like, churn this out and just to make sure I'm doing everything right. And my God, like, and not just me too, like, everyone doing testing, everyone doing production, just everyone is feeling it right now. It's to the point that, like, people are not getting time off on Christmas, like, because they're like, we need to produce medicine for this so that we can meet the demands once the new year comes, because they know once approvals come in and stuff, they're going to want to push this out to people as quickly as possible. So that's why it's like a lot of overtime. Like, I know, I talked to even people in supply chain. They're doing 60 hours plus, working 6 days a week at this point. Like, some people in QC are basically working that too, and definitely not getting paid overtime because of the type of job they have because, of course, on certain jobs, I'm luckily getting paid overtime because I guess my job's, like, how do you say, it's not higher up enough to not warrant not getting paid overtime, if that makes sense. Like, luckily, like, I will get it, but the higher up you go, they stop that exempt. They stop listing you as not. Yeah, they stop paying for overtime. Like, the managers, there's so many people putting in so much overtime just to make sure things work out right, and they're not getting compensated for it. Yeah, it is insane. And, like, I'm of the opinion, especially with certain people, I'm like, you absolutely deserve to be paid freaking overtime because of all the work that you're getting put into. But it's like, it's insane, and it's just like collaborating with. Hell, even doing, like, last-minute inspections of certain areas within QC on the phone. Actually, I didn't even tell you the story. This is a good story. This happened to me because in the past, at my prior workplace, too, there were times where where the inspectors literally asked, oh, can I see that system on your computer and go through it and everything that you've done and made? Guess what? That happened to me. That happened to me recently, actually. Not with the FDA, but with, it was because they mainly inspected part of the QC lab via phone, of course, because that's how they do it now. This was a location in Spain, actually. And it's because there's a production plant there that they are helping with the production of, obviously, this COVID vaccine. They're helping with it with another company that's based in Europe that my company is collaborating with to help produce this. However, there's a couple types of QC testing that they're not doing there that they're doing at my facility. So because of that, they had to come and do, via phone, obviously, and do an inspection at the QC facility at my area. And then they ask questions about limbs, and then they're like, they look at me, my manager is literally there, the director of the freaking director of our QC team, and then other people as well, another quality head director who's controlling the phone, is all just like, and another like higher up quality person. It's like so many higher ups are surrounding me, and they're just like, we need your computer for limbs access, like, right now. And I'm like, right now? Right freaking now. So they're just, like, going through, like, my limbs access. I'm just like, holy crud, I hope they don't see anything that is inappropriate. Not that I did anything wrong, but it's just, like, anything off that someone else did within the system, potentially. And there's even one point where just, like, you know, what happened to these XYZ samples? This is not showing up. Where do we find disposed samples on the system? It's not laid out easily to find them, at least at the times, which I hope that they're, you know, working to fix, obviously. But of course things are crazy right now, but that's what they're doing. They literally took control of my computer. I'm like right there, I'm just showing an example of, this is how you find the samples. Doing it very carefully so I don't mess it up in real time on a camera. That happened to me, and it's like, holy cow. And like, I knew it wasn't like an FDA or a PLI inspection, but still, it's terrifying, because it's like, you want to make sure you do this right, even by phone, because it's like, they want to have confidence in knowing that you're doing this testing right, and they can have confidence that you're doing it sufficiently and that you're tracking data sufficiently. You know, it's like stuff like that. Like that's what's been going on. Like stuff like that, just dealing with shipments coming in, and there was, you know, shipments coming in for a while that were just kind of like messy from another company that we're working with to help produce this vaccine. So we had to like work with them to try to organize these shipments better, so then it'd be easier for the people receiving them to know what we got and what we need to collect, distribute out for testing within our labs. It's that whole coordination thing. It's like a lot of coordination, a lot of like ad hoc work that happens like now. A lot of samples coming in through production, all different types of samples, just like that you need to get out for testing that day, of course. And of course, if it's like certain samples have to be aliquot even still, so we have to make sure we spend time to go into a BSC or like a biosafety cabinet. You know, make sure that's clean, do your sampling properly in a nice sterile way, and then distribute that all out. And that takes time. That all takes time throughout your day. And like sometimes it's hard to take care of certain other important things because it's just like you're busy taking care of something that's requested or more urgent than that. And it's just like, it's just constant, I wouldn't say chaos, although it does feel like that sometimes, but like it's just constant.
It's
like
all chaos.
It's basically everything's like on fire, you could say. Like if they're like, we need to send these pallets of stuff out today by this afternoon, then you need to make sure you did an initial inspection of them so that they can get sent out that afternoon and get taken care of. You know, it's a lot of last minute coordination. Like I was told to do the inspection of those, like of the pallet of those like certain consumable materials, like only on Tuesday, and I had to do it all day Wednesday to make sure that they were all good, that there's an initial check on them all good, and then we could complete the rest on the computer. It's like stuff like that. I was like, oh, it was so much work standing for like good like 10 or 11 hours, and then I finished up what I could that evening so that I could just get things ready to be approved like the following day for people. Yeah, it's insane. It's literally insane. Like it's just like, I'm surprised more people haven't, like, granted, you know, you'd be like, I mean, I basically had higher ups and supervisors say, I would not blame people if they left right now. Because it's just that chaotic and insane that it's just like, we'd understand. We completely understand if you totally left.
Yes.
Yeah.
My job did the same thing where a bunch of people have left and a bunch more people are leaving. Yeah. I'm one of them.
Actually, yeah.
I got a different, I'm still a nurse. I'm just going somewhere else.
But yeah, it's like stuff like that. It's like my mind, especially this past week, I had to work like over 50 something hours this past week. So it's like stuff like that. And I'm just like, I'm exhausted every time I come home. Like I feel like I ran a marathon every time coming out of work. And you probably felt that way too, especially. I mean, you maybe still do too as well, Sammy. But it's like literally the weight of the world's on your shoulders right now because they're like anticipating this. And you just like, no, you cannot fuck up this drug. You cannot. Of all things in your life you can't do, you can't fuck up what you're doing right now.
I mean, I think that's always just sort of part of the job anyway.
Yeah, in a way, but
and also I think your side is just sort of the future of, like, does this get any better? Because I'm sort of just trying to deal with what's happening now.
Yeah.
Your side is more just trying to figure out, like, do we ever get back to some sort of semblance of normal?
Yeah, it's...
Maybe.
Yeah, and, like, we're trying our darnest to do so, and it's
I mean,
like,
I think everyone's just doing as the best they can.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think that's all we can do. And I liked having this conversation about just sort of what the hell is happening, what the hell has happened this year.
Because I'm even still trying to process it, frankly. Like, I even just, like, the fact that...
I don't know if I have processed it. I don't think I have. My brain, I think, might still be in, like, April.
I feel like this conversation is basically therapy for the both of us in a way. Because it's kind of just
we needed to get all this out.
Yeah.
But honestly, I just think that... I think it was good to just show... Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people know that there are human beings behind all of this, but I think that with all of the misinformation happening, it's just good to remind people that, hey, there are human beings here just trying to do the best they can.
Yeah. And I will say, too, full disclosure, I think the medicine that my company is making does appear to be good, and I hope it stays that way, you know, once it gets applied into real world stuff. But based on what I've seen results wise from clinical trials, I have faith in it that I will definitely at some point end up getting that vaccination. It's just a matter of when I get it. Even though
you are like the lead, because you're on the same, you're essentially, everyone that works there is on the same, the rollout will just be you guys are considered part of like the general population, right?
Yeah, probably. Oh, I actually, you know, I forgot to mention how they do testing there. You know, before we transition to something else to talk about on here, I totally forgot how they do testing here, because like it's way different from my old company. Goodness, because like you're probably wondering, you know, all these people that have to go into, you know, this company that works on a COVID vaccine, what are they doing for their employees to make sure they're freaking safe, right? So, like, some employees obviously have been stuck at home since March, you know, surprise, surprise. Some have been going in and out because of, depending whatever the hell they have to do. And then others, like me, basically have to be there all the freaking time. Because, of course, because testing and supporting production and blah, 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 blah. So, how they do it, this is basically I mainly try to make this my mornings. So, every morning, I walk in the doors. You have to badge in because you need badge access to get in. And usually, as they do, even at my prior job, it was like that for security reasons. I think a lot of jobs do that these days, that they have badge access to get in, but I don't think for every job that's the case. But for at least in my experience, what I've experienced so far, it's been badge access. So you have to badge in. We have an app to basically trace where we've walked. That turns on whenever you get at the facility. And that app traces where you walk, and they always check to make sure that you have it downloaded properly on your phone. Usually, in my case, it's my work phone. And then they also have another application that you have to fill out a questionnaire for, whether, you know, to determine whether you can come in for work. And every day I have to fill out that questionnaire. I usually try to do it before I leave for work. And then I have to display both of them to be like, hey, this is good, and that's good. And then I have to go walk up to a main camera thing. And from that camera thing, it's basically, it's not like the handgun infrared kind of temperature measurement. It's like one from think of like a GoPro except bigger, and it's a scanner they attach to a computer there in like the main waiting room area, and then you have to walk up and stand a certain feet apart from it, and they scan your temperature, and then they're just like, oh, you're good. And then they have you pick up a new face mask, a disposable one, and then like a health card to show like, hey, I got my temperature scanning today. I'm approved to walk around this facility. And you have to have that with you. And I generally keep it in my like ID pouch thing so that I could just whip it and be like, if I have to leave the building and come back in for whatever reason throughout the day, they'll be like, you good? And I'm just like, I show the health card there. That's when they know that I was already good, okayed earlier to be around. And then in the day, usually I schedule them for the morning because I just find it easier to take care of. I have to get a COVID test. So for a while, they used to do PCR like spit tests that usually took a day turnaround to get that data from, and we used to have to take a tube and literally spit into it, and then like attach and then tie in this.
At least they're doing those, because our tests are the nasal swabs, which are just.
It's funny you mentioned that because I'm about to get into that, but not. I don't think it's the one that fully goes to the back of your brain though. But they did the spit test for a while, the PCR spit test. But now they're transitioning to a more rapid nasal swab one. But it's a nasal swab.
The nasal swabs are fast.
Yeah. It's not the one that goes to the back of your head that's touching your brain though. It's one that goes like
It's not going to your...
It goes into your nose.
Okay, realistically, it's going down your throat. That's where it's going.
Yeah.
Well, your nose goes... Like, it's going down your throat. It's not going to the back of your brain.
The one that we've been getting has not been that. It's been more up the nasal cavity, but not, like, too far up. Like, about an inch up, I guess you could say, where they do a quick swab... Or you could, but I just have them do it because I'm just like, I don't want to fuck it up at this point. You just do it. Nurses, thank you.
You don't want to fuck it up.
Kind nurses that are there that the company hires to, or has some agreement to have them stationed there for us to get tested. But in the morning, I have to log onto a computer and basically schedule to get tested. And then once that happens, I usually, obviously, after that, I just tend to go right away. For the PCR one, we had to wait like 30 minutes prior to do it because they didn't want like food particles in there. But with the swab ones, you can just go straight over there now. And that's been like the antigen test. That's like a rapid one that I think takes like, 15, 20, 25 minutes for them to get a result for. So that's what I've been doing the past like week now, and that's been like a lot more efficient and faster, I'd say. And it's kind of just like, oh, I'm still good for the day. So, and also it also helps too, because it's like if you do it early enough, and then it's like if you do end up getting tested positive, you know to leave, get that GTFO the building right now.
Yeah, you know to just get out before you're there for half of the day and then test positive.
Yeah, but yeah, people still do come in testing positive though. And part of that, and because of that, and that track and trace app I mentioned earlier, that it's the idea is that you have your work phone on you wherever you're going, which hopefully is the case. But there, so that's kind of why I'm in my situation right now. Why I'm quarantining at the time of this recording is because I somehow came into contact, don't know who, don't know for how long. Ooh. Hopefully it's not someone for a long time that I was with the other day. But it was someone that apparently tested positive for COVID. So as a precaution, they notified me and I had to tell my boss. And conveniently, this all happens like literally before my off days. So in a way, the timing matched up with that. So I guess that's one good thing that came out of it. So it didn't completely screw up a schedule. Again, we'll see what happens if it does screw up.
From there.
Yeah, we'll see what happens from there. But because of that, that's how they tell and try to notify people to try to, make sure there isn't like a crazy spread of COVID within the building. Because especially they don't want that in the manufacturing production suites. Absolutely not. Or within like areas where there's a lot of people around working. Because you need those people who are trained to perform that work. Especially now. You need people to push things through. And like, yeah. But yeah, that's definitely a stark difference where they're out, which probably is it's definitely more comforting knowing that a company making a COVID vaccine is actually trying to make sure its employees are, fit to be able to make the COVID vaccine. And also I have to say the gift packages we've been getting from them, and even just in my couple of months, I've gotten like 2 of them. They literally sent me freaking food from my company. I didn't even know what it was at first because my mom was like, "You got a package," and I'm like, what? By who? She's like, I don't know. Did you order something? I'm like, no. So we open it up. Turns out it was literally soup in a jar and like bread and cookies. And I'm like, what the fuck? And it was like, we looked at it out. We're like, holy shit. We said that alone together. We were like, holy shit. And then we got another package and like, oh my God. And my boss actually got us like coats and stuff and candy. And that was really sweet of her. Yeah. And they're like really nice coats and whatnot. I don't think they're North Face, but it's like a nice parka coat for this weather now. And it's like embroidered and it has like our subgroup team name on it and it's cute. But I also got this other package from my company too that like, oh goodness, it's like a booklet. And like it's just kind of like, the company's values, blah blah blah. Obviously catered more towards like COVID. And then the back page is like my favorite because they decided to put a little collage of all these letters from kids that sent mailing to my company to be like, thank you so much for making the vaccine to trying to bring the world back to normal. And I'm like, this is so freaking wholesome. This is so freaking wholesome. I can't. And it's like, it's stuff like that though, that like ties me into like, why the hell I joined this industry in the first place. Because, okay, maybe I don't want to talk about it too much because it doesn't necessarily tie into the conversation, but like I've had certain family members in my life who've passed away from like certain like illnesses and diseases, and that was like a huge motivator for me to like be like, I want to do something with my life that could potentially like help people. And I think you can relate to this too a lot, Sammy, as well with your position. But of course, in this case, I wanted to help people by like trying to make medicine so that you could help people live a somewhat normal functioning life. Maybe a cure. Maybe, who knows, but just contribute to something.
At least
to try to help people out.
I think COVID is gonna be like the flu.
Yeah.
There is no cure. It's just we can do the best. We can make it less of a pandemic.
Yeah. Less of a
not a pandemic,
yeah.
Just sort of a part of life.
Yeah. And yeah, that's the thing that I've always that. It's like stuff like that reminds me of like why the hell I chose to do this. Because for all I know, I could have chose to work in a company that makes freaking toilet paper. Like, granted, toilet paper is important and everything, but
important, especially in this pandemic. There's a lot of
all
toilet
the toilet
paper.
Hoarding it all. Jesus
I don't
Christ.
know why we hoard it. Why are we hoarding toilet paper? That is not a resource that we need to hoard right now.
I have no idea why we're hoarding goddamn fucking toilet paper. But
I don't know. Of everything to hoard.
But there's companies that make that stuff, and it's like, well, especially now this year, we know that it's important. But I'm kind of like, when I first got into it, I was just like, do I want to say that I'm proud of making fucking toilet paper, or do I want to do something that I'm really happy to know, like, really, really, truly potentially made a difference in someone's life in a massive way? And stuff like this that like what like that booklet that that new company gave me, that's kind of just like, this is why the fuck I'm doing this is why I'm putting up with all the bullshit, or not just with trying to push out this COVID vaccine and all the craziness of it, but just like even daily stuff within the industry from like prior, why I still do this. This is why, because I really truly want to put some good karma out there in the world in some way, shape, or form, and in a way I wouldn't say give myself meaning, but just like, be like, what the hell am I doing here on Earth? Like, I guess you could say, it's kind of religious and whatnot I am, but it's kind of like, what's my purpose in life? What's the kind of impact I want to leave? And like this, it's stuff like that like keeps you grounded and like gives you that like higher purpose of like still doing, that it gives me like that like comforting thing of like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing.
I mean, it does. This has both in a way been like the hardest time and also a weirdly gratifying time of just like, you're doing something. Not that like what we were doing before wasn't important. You were still making medicine and I was still treating sick people. But in a way, it's such a gratifying, like, you're in the middle of a once-in-a-lifetime situation. It
is. It really, truly is. And that's, like, it's so overwhelming, too. Like, yeah.
It is. It's so overwhelming, but looking at it with some sort of retrospect, even if it's a year out of this, like, it's just been gratifying to see what the great things that we've just been able to accomplish in a year of just... But it's both been super gratifying to just be able to like help people through this, and then also just seeing the way the world has reacted been super like heart like crushing. Just crushing to just see how people are what people are doing.
I mean, if anything,
so like, what do we so I think we've been going at this for a while now, so I think what do we take away from this?
Oh, the biggest thing I take away from this is, goddamn, there are some crazy, smart, incredible people working within, like, medicine and just biotechnology, but also just, I think for me, it's just kind of like, it gives me newfound appreciation for, like, why I chose this industry to work in and why I'm happy about it, even if I don't stay with this company, in the long, long run, because who knows what the hell happens.
You can always say you were part of...
Yeah, I could always say in my job experience that I fucking did this. I fucking did this, so if I can fucking do this, I can fucking do anything. I keep saying that.
That's sort of how
that's how I can see it.
Exactly what I'm feeling of. I did this. It gave me a weird new appreciation for the strength I have and, like, what I can do. It's just insane that, like, we did this.
And I guess I want to say on a personal note, it's like, even though a lot of people, like, like, we are trying to push so much time to, like, an effort to make medicine, like, really, I think... like, it's people like you, Sammy, like the nurses and stuff, I think, that have probably seen the real brunt worst of this, and it's, if anything, I'm glad people are finally like, maybe they've always had, but I'm glad that people are really appreciating the work that like nurses and doctors and stuff in hospitals really do, because you guys are doing some incredible, you know, like crazy incredible stuff, and dealing with like sometimes some of the worst of situations that you know, like a one human being can see. And I know there's definitely stuff that you haven't talked about, because you know it's probably hard to talk about it, that you've totally told like us knee slappers before, and that's fine. You know, you definitely don't have to talk about it. I don't blame you for not talking about that sort of stuff. But like I want to say, for me personally, like I greatly like admire people like you for like putting in all that work and like just effort, and still sticking with even all the BS of like just day to day like hospital BS stuff, but also just like the BS of like dealing with all this. Like what you guys do is incredible. Like I try to question myself in that kind of situation. I'm just like, me complaining about my workplace trying to push out a vaccine feels like peanuts in a way. Like it does, like in a way, like it is crazy and whatnot. But it's like I just want to say thank you, from me to you. Thank you, Sammy, because like it's stuff like not just you, but also all of the nurses too as well. If you guys are hearing this, and doctors and whatnot, because you guys are doing some crazy ass work. You've borne like I think the biggest brunt of that. So like, thank you guys for doing all this work and stuff. Like, I appreciate it. I don't think I've ever said that to your face, but like, thank you.
You haven't, and now I don't know how to respond, but thank you.
I tried.
I don't know.
I'm sorry if I made you cry or something, but I had to say it at some point, because I think like you guys have, because it's like crazy, you know, it's like really crazy. Like, and like I you know. Yeah, it's an insane situation. I'm glad people are like actually appreciating what y'all do, and I hope it continues. I hope people don't forget that, honestly, because that's really comes at the end of the day. Like, we're not doing this. People aren't doing this just to make money or just to do anything. We're really doing this because we really care, you know?
And also, we just want to do the best for everyone. I think that the fact of the matter is that we as people are just trying to make the world better. No one expected, well, no. I'm not going to say no one expected this to happen, because we have been due for a global pandemic.
Yeah, it was bound to happen eventually.
It was bound to happen
Pandemics happened all the freaking time in history before, like, medicine.
Yeah, pandemics happen a lot. Yeah. We've been a good, like, 100 years since the last major global pandemic.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think it was time.
Yeah.
It was about time.
Yeah.
But in general, I think that no one expected it to happen right now. And so now we're just sort of trying to deal.
Yeah.
And I just hope people, like, eventually, like, everything in nature, we're all going to forget, and it's all going to move on, and things will have changed. And I don't think we're ever going to go back to exactly how it was before.
Hell no. It's definitely too much for it to.
But I do think that we can at least make this so that it goes back to some kind of normalcy.
I think we'll definitely get our own version of like the Roaring 20s for sure once things calm down. Like,
I mean, I will say, I saw someone have a tweet, which is, I'm not surprised that right after the Spanish flu, you had the Roaring 20s, because I just kind of want to go outside.
I do. I just kind of, it makes me not want to be an introvert. I just want to like
go. Yeah, I'm an introvert. Yeah. And like I want to like go for a walk in a park and not
or
like,
hell, I just want to travel more. I just want to go to, not in a club. I just want to go out and interact with people more in a way, even with friends.
I want to meet you, Maria.
I want to meet you too, fam. I want to meet the rest of the knee slappers.
I don't think people realize the knee slappers, except for with rare exceptions, like I know Lucas has met. Lucas and Dan are brothers.
Well,
so
yeah,
Lucas.
I would hope so.
But like a knee slapper meetup has never happened.
No, or not even with other people that we totally have talked to in like other Discords and stuff. No. Like we never meet them.
I want to meet people.
I want to meet them. You know, at some point.
So
like, assuming that
I just want people to sort of, I mean, and I think that we've talked about everything we've gone through, but I think everybody can do their own part in this. I think that it's very easy to have COVID fatigue of just like, well, it's been a year, we have to go back to normal. And I'm like, we don't.
It's like I get the point of need to make money and stuff because I understand that, but at the same time, you can do it safely.
But it's also like you have to be safe about it. You have to be safe about it
because I know a lot of people lost jobs during this.
No, I'm not even saying about the job situation. Like you do what you have to do to make money, but I'm saying just people going out to bars, people going out to, like, do things that are not absolutely necessary. I consider a job a necessity.
Oh, yeah.
That's necessary to be doing. A job is a necessity.
Just a little bit important.
Going, like, there are certain things that are not necessities that are happening that part of it makes me a little angry.
It's like, I'm just gonna, this is kind of low-hanging fruit, but those dumbass TikTok bullshit influencers out in California having their fucking parties, because they're the easiest ones to pick on, but it's like, they're so fucking stupid. I'm sorry. Like, I know you're desperate to have fun, get drunk, and get fucked up, but you can do that by yourself and a few friends.
Fun,
like, come
and you
on.
want fun, but
come
also,
on. You don't need 100 people at your house. Come on here.
No.
Like,
and also, like, if you have 100 people at your house now, guess what? That just adds how long to this pandemic at the end.
Yeah.
Just sort of, like, hunker down now. The vaccines are around the corner.
Literally, I can tell you without having
they're around
officially, they're coming.
But, like, just, you know, trust science, trust experts. Trust experts more than you trust random people on the internet.
We're trying not to screw you over, I swear to God.
We're not trying. No one is trying to screw you over. We are just trying to help you genuinely. And
granted, we're probably not the only ones making COVID vaccines, too. There's probably other companies, too, like, all over in different parts of the world.
There's a bunch of
we're just talking about the ones focused on the U.S. right now, that are more U.S.-based.
And, like, there is information out there about this vaccine from reputable sources, not from your cousin Karen on your Facebook
Karen,
feed.
insert Karen.
Insert Karen
Fucking
joke
Karens.
here. But, like,
just
trust it. Just trust science.
Yeah.
We are human beings. No one's trying... I think it's much easier to think of a company as evil and trying to hurt you than it is as Maria helped with this vaccine. I don't think Maria's trying to poison
I'm definitely not. I helped with I'm helping with the supporting of testing and actually doing testing and helping to approve of materials to make this goddamn drug. So, you know,
exactly.
Like, I'm not trying to fuck you over. I'm trying to do everything freaking right. That's my concern. Is if something goes wrong, I report that shit right away. Always.
Exactly.
Always.
So, like, it's just easier to think of it as evil when it's a faceless company.
Yeah.
I think it's just also good that people now have a person. Like, you're a human being. Like, we're real people.
Yeah, I know. We don't show
robots
our faces.
making this vaccine. We're real people.
We don't show our faces, but we're real people.
We don't, but we're human. Like, I don't think a robot would come up with this podcast.
Hell no.
A robot would do a way better job than we can.
The coding to make an AI to come up with this podcast is not smart enough, I think, to voice
it's
this.
Also not, but it also is too smart to do this.
Oh, yeah.
We're not.
Yeah.
No
they
robot
wouldn't rely
would
on
think
motion
this is
like
good content.
this.
Also, no robot would think that what we make is good content.
Let's be real here.
But I think that's... do we want to wrap it up here?
I mean, unless you in particular have any closing thoughts. I mean, I think...
I just think that... I think those are my closing thoughts of just, like, everybody just stay safe.
Yeah, honestly.
Do what you can. And be... I'm gonna take something. Don't be scared.
Yeah.
Just be alert. Don't live in fear. Just be alert to what's going
Absolutely
on.
Don't be in fear. But
don't
just look after yourself and look after your immediate family members,
family.
especially.
Exactly.
You know?
Like, it's don't live in fear, but don't live oblivious.
Yeah.
You can't ignore what's happening, but you also can't let it control you.
Exactly. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better, honestly. And yeah, I think that this was, I think that sums up my thoughts, besides this being like a nice therapy session that I thought up of a few days ago.
So this is a weird outro to try to do, but thanks for watching. Yeah. Come back next week for possibly a more K-pop related episode with more levity.
Probably.
And also, I feel weird plugging anything on this episode, so just go to the description for all our socials, because I feel weird after this conversation plugging anything.
Yeah, just I guess at this point, if we want to tie it back to K-pop, I hope all the K-pop idols are taking care of themselves. I
hope the staff is fine. Yeah. I hope their families are fine. I hope all the members are fine. Yeah. And if you have any symptoms, go get yourself
tested, man. Just look it up. I'm pretty sure most people have access, at least in a first world country, have access to an internet, to be able to look
and
this
testing
up.
sites and just do that. So, That's been the episode.
Woo.
Bye.
All right, bye everybody. Stay safe.